Welcome to Canada Files. I'm Valerie Pringle. My guest today is David Foster, musician, songwriter, composer, arranger, producer, and recording artist. He has won 16 Grammy Awards and been nominated 47 times. He's worked with artists from Streisand to Celine, Whitney to Chicago, and Bublé to Bocelli. Now at the age of 75, he is in his third round. I spoke with him in Los Angeles. Hello, David.
Hello.
You've had phenomenal success as a musician, producer, songwriter. So what do you want to accomplish in your third round?
Well, I've always said, at least in my own mind, that I think people get basically 3 rounds, as you alluded to. And I sort of can point definitively to my first 2 and what I did. In my round 3, it points to Broadway. It points to trying to take less time or more time off, which hasn't happened yet. But I haven't been in the studio making records for 10 years. And it doesn't seem like it's been that long, but it has. And it feels great because I was in there for 40 plus years, like in a submarine environment and no windows. Slide the music out, slide the food in, slide more music out. And, you know, the artists got to go and enjoy the fruits of our labor, and I just made more music. So now I tour, and I get to experience what the audience is listening to songs that I wrote or co-wrote or produced, and it's been a great round 3 so far.
Well, what was it? It was Ronnie Hawkins, right, who gave you the advice?
Right.
But he was the one who sort of said, you know, if things aren't working, then retreat and attack from another direction.
Yeah, and Ronnie, as we all know, was an amazing guy, and yes, he did say that. When it gets tough, retreat and attack in another direction, because there's so many people in every walk of life that when things start going bad, they just keep hammering at the wall, like, I'll get through the wall, I'll get through the wall. No, you're not gonna get through the wall. Go around the wall. And I've done that a couple of times in my life. Most recently, at the end of the 90s, when I really sort of stopped writing hit records. And that's when I found Josh Groban and Michael Bublé and hooked up with Andrea Bocelli. And that carried me through right till almost now.
You've had some great mentors, though. I mean, Quincy Jones obviously was a really important one to you. What did he teach you?
Quincy was so unique on every level. Like I've heard since his passing, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, now you could be the new Quincy Jones, or now this guy's going to be the new Quincy Jones. No, there's no new Quincy Jones. It's never, ever going to happen. He was a movement. He wasn't just a record producer, he was a movement. There's nobody like him.
But he said to you, don't compromise. Never compromise.
Well, he said, compromise breeds mediocrity. Yeah. I handed him an album that I had done, and I immediately started making excuses for it. I was newly a producer and so proud. Hey, Quincy, look at me. And I said, oh, track number 1's not that good, but track number 2 is great. Track 7, the vocals are out of tune. And he's like, your name's on it. What are you doing? Why are you making excuses? If your name's on it, it better be great, or as great as you know how to make it. And I never forgot that.
You were born with perfect pitch. So tell me the story about how that was found out.
Well, the story, I don't know if it's even true or not. And of course, my parents aren't around to verify it, but apparently my mother was dusting the piano and I said, that's an E. She didn't know what an E was, so she called my father, who was a great amateur musician, got him home at lunch hour, and he said, yeah, that's an E. How did he know that? And I don't know how I knew it, but that's the story they always told, so I'm sticking with it.
And they were always hugely supportive of you as a musician.
I often think about kids, young adults, teenagers, that don't have the support of their parents, and I just wonder what that would feel like, to be talented, or to be good at something, which every kid is.
Or just to love it.
Yeah. And my parents were so supportive, and they spent their last dime literally trying to propel my career. They obviously saw something, and it just, I don't know what that would feel like to have not had that support. And also, my sisters, I have 6 sisters, and to this day, 5 of them are still alive. To this day, my sisters are amazing. They're not jealous, they support me, they're happy for my success, and they share in my success, but from afar. They never want to, they never want me to go out of my way for them, which I love to do for them. But they're just, they're Canadian. Mm-hmm. They're, everything's, I'm sorry.
But you had a music teacher early on who said to you, didn't they, that, having perfect pitch doesn't make you a musical genius. So, that isn't just the key to, huge success. But so what was?
That's right. Well, first of all, I want to clarify, and this is not me being humble. I know I'm great. Okay, I have 16.
I'm so glad you could say that.
No, but I have 16 Grammys. I know the work that I've done, but I'm not a genius, and I never was. Geniuses are people that can play Mozart at age 5. I was an okay classical pianist, but I wasn't a great classical pianist. I'm an okay piano player now. I'm not a great piano player. I managed to just make the most of the talents I had, and through networking and through having an ear for pop music and being exposed to a lot of music since childhood, thanks to my parents and some friends, I put it all together. But I am definitely not a genius, and I really mean that. But what was your question?
Well, it was about being a musical genius. One of the stories I loved was you hearing the Beatles for the first time, and your head blew off, basically.
It was, I was sort of enwrapped in classical music, per my parents' wishes. I was starting to hate it, not because I didn't like the music, but I didn't like playing other people's music. So I was going off classical music, and I heard them, when I was 13, I heard She Loves You, and I was like, my head literally exploded. I was like, whatever that is, I want to do that.
Now, you spent years as a studio musician, pianist, and thinking, I could produce. Like, what made you think you could produce? Why did you want to produce?
Being a control freak, which I was and am, often I would take over if the producer was weak. And I would take over, and I was like, I can do this. What I didn't know, Valerie, is that to be a great record producer, you have to have a great song sense. And I didn't have a great song sense in the beginning. I was more focused on, let's make this great track. I'll get the best bass player, the best drummer, the best piano player, and that's going to be the record, and it's going to be a huge hit because I got the best people. It has nothing to do with that at all. You have to have great song sense, and I didn't have it early on, which is why when I quit being a session player, and we were making really good money. This is in the late 70s. We were making over $100,000 a year, which is a lot of money, still is. And I quit and went down to zero. And the first 3 albums I produced they didn't do anything. And I was like, oh my God, I'm terrible at this. I thought I was going to be great at it because I didn't have song sense.
Where'd you get song sense?
Well, I guess I was forced to learn it. It was like, do or die. And then I didn't even really listen to lyrics, which is insane to think that I wouldn't listen to lyrics. But then when I just sort of developed, and I think maybe when I got with Earth, Wind & Fire, that's maybe when I started really paying attention to songs. Maurice White from Earth, Wind & Fire was such a great mentor, and he taught me so much, including song sense.
Well, you talk about, and I'd love you to tell these stories because they're so good, 5 songs that really changed your life. And the first one is Earth, Wind & Fire.
I'm sure everybody that's watching in their career, they have those jump out moments. And mine was Earth, Wind & Fire, Chicago, Natalie Cole, Unforgettable, Celine Dion, The Bodyguard, Whitney Houston, Bublé, Groban, Butch Elliott. There's just like sort of 8 to 10 standout propelling moments.
And tell me about Natalie Cole, because you were saying you weren't even sure when you took Unforgettable as a song and she wanted to do this duet with her dad, how that would go, but you kind of did it really for the love of the music.
Well, to be truthful about it in my career, and I like to be truthful about my career, the ups and downs, I'd had this tremendous run in the 80s with, like I said, Earth, Wind & Fire in Chicago, and Alice Cooper, Kenny Loggins, Kenny Rogers, Celine. Everything was just going gangbusters. And at the end of the 80s, my career just started to tank a little bit. I was like, God, I started doing weird projects that didn't work. And so when Natalie came along with the Unforgettable album, I was like, well, I love the music. This is not going to do anything. Nobody's going to buy this because it's 40s music, but I love the music. Let's do it. And she was a friend of mine. And then a couple of days later is when she told me, she said, by the way, I want to try and do that as a duet with my father. And I was like, me, that, duet, that. Of course, as I've explained before, the technology was not what it is today. It was a slugfest to make it work, but we made it work, and it just kind of quietly set the world on fire. I mean, I would play it for people before the record came out, and their mouths would just drop at the sort of perfection of these two voices, you know.
What did Barbra Streisand say about you? I'm funny and easy to work with in the studio, and David Foster is not.
Yeah.
But you're both perfectionists. That must have been.
I've always said about Barbara that I don't think she's a perfectionist. I think she just needs to know every option that's available to her. And so now, she's still making records, she still sounds good. But now the technology is so amazing that she can have all those options without, you know, back in the day, we would, like on the Back to Broadway album, there was this one song where full orchestra, and God knows how many thousands of dollars it cost. We do the whole thing. Midnight, I get a call. The intro's too fast. That means we've got to go all the way back with a full orchestra again just to make a slower intro. There was no technology in the 80s. So now she has all this technology at the push of a button. She's like, she's in heaven.
Whitney Houston and The Bodyguard and I Will Always Love You. That song and how it turned out, I mean, there are great stories about the a cappella beginning and Kevin Costner finding that song and Dolly Parton telling you about the third verse that you didn't know was there.
I know, it's a story I've told so many times, but very briefly, well, the a cappella thing, Kevin said, I want her to start with no music. For the movie, it's gonna be great. I said, Kevin, that's a stupid idea. But if you want it for your movie, you're the boss, so here you go. But when I get it back to my studio, I'm gonna put music around it. And then we're in the Waldorf Hotel in Miami where she's filming it and singing it live. And she goes, it's like, holy crap, this is like, as her mother, who was standing beside me, said, you're witnessing greatness right now.
And you were.
And I was, yeah. Nothing to do with me. That was Kevin's idea.
Seeing Celine Dion, which you did in Little Tent in rural Quebec, singing, was witnessing greatness too.
God, when I saw her sing, it was like, I've described it before, but it's like in those movies, you know, when the sound just goes, and that's all I could see. There was kids running around on tables, and it was a picnic or some weird thing, and she was singing I Will Survive. Gloria Gaynor, I think.
In French?
No, in English. But she didn't know any English, so she was singing it phonetically. Because when I met her afterwards, she really couldn't do more than say hello. She knew, that was just one of the many incredible things about her. She learned English so fast. She went to Berlitz, and she just learned it. She's just like, she's magnificent. She's magnificent.
And you found Michael Bublé as the wedding singer. I mean, these stories are part of the legend, but they're great stories.
They are, and I bet you at this point, Michael Bublé, if he turns on the TV and sees this at this point, he's going, would you stop telling the story, okay? It's enough already. Okay, so you found me, big deal. Look what I've done, like, leave me alone. You can't keep talking about Celine's tent and the Bublé wedding and Josh Groban in high school and...
Yeah, but you know, that is so important. Who had the ear? Who did that? And you actually, I mean, I bet you were saying you wish you'd found more and brought along more talent. What greater accomplishment is there?
Well, yes. Bublé was, again, like Josh, I didn't know the magnitude of these people. I just loved their voices. And I thought, I think millions of people are going to love this. Which doesn't make me an elitist. It doesn't make me some genius at finding talent. It makes me a commoner. It truly makes me a commoner. Like, I think millions of people are gonna love this, and I'm right. I was right about it. He, you know, our great Prime Minister, Brian Mulroney, who we all love, well, most people loved, I think I certainly did, and his beautiful wife, Mila. This is a great family. But at the wedding, it was Caroline's wedding, and Brian, you know, he's a big guy. He's like, grab me by the arm. Wait till you see this guy. Wait. And in my mind, I'm thinking, gosh, Mr. Prime Minister, I really just want to enjoy the wedding. I really don't want to see a singer. I don't care about a wedding singer. I've seen 1,000 wedding bands, like, please. But I didn't say that. he drags me up front, and this kid comes out, and he goes, "When the shark bites," only not like that. And I was like, again, the whole wedding went away. All I could do was see this kid. And Michael and I have different stories about what happened after that. But in my mind, I got him to LA really quickly. I lent him some money, and I don't know, we got him signed to Warner Brothers and made a lot of records together.
What do you think is the best song that you wrote?
I think maybe the song that's maybe had the most impact on people is that song that Carol Bayer Sager and I wrote called "The Prayer" for Celine Dion and Andrea Bocelli, with Italian lyrics by Tony Reynas. It's a moving song, and interestingly, Valerie, it gets played at weddings and funerals. Now, think about what has to happen musically to cover that spectrum. The saddest day and the happiest day, same song. I know Ave Maria does the same thing. I know that Wind Beneath My Wings does it, but there's like, I can only think of maybe 5 examples total in the world that can be played at both events. So that alone kind of separates that from a lot of the other crap that I've written. And I've written some crappy songs, let's be honest.
So what do you think your greatest talent is?
That I've maximized being a piano player. Does that even make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I'm a piano player. When I go to the doctor's office, I put on, when it says occupation, I say musician. That's what I feel like I am.
I think I heard you say that your favorite song was "Send in the Clowns."
True. Yeah, why?
Yeah, why?
I do know why.
Sondheim, interesting.
Yeah. I love it because of the lyric. There's just something about, I don't know, maybe it's as you get older and like, okay, you were up there, I'm down here, it's like it's almost over. And I don't know, the lyric just moves me in a way. Plus musically, it's great.
You say your biggest regret is, you were workaholic with all this success, not spending enough time with your kids when they were growing up.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a common theme, I think. To cut to the chase, you would say, hey, look, you want a great life or do you want me around? Because you probably can't have both. But you can't say that to kids, of course. I don't know, I did something right with my kids, even though they're upset about those times. My kids are all flourishing, they're all doing great, they're all off the payroll. And
your
so
daughters are killing it.
Yeah, I mean, Amy was the co-writer with Michael Bublé, writing those songs. And then Sarah, Aaron, and Jordan are, they have the TV show on Netflix called Nobody Wants This,
which is huge.
Huge. They have their clothing line, Favorite Daughter. My youngest daughter, Jordan, is the stylist for that company. My oldest daughter, Allison, is on the board of my foundation. And I mean, they're all thriving.
But they're hardworking. They're not little LA princesses. Interesting.
The thing you can't give your children is poverty when you're in a position like myself. You can't give them poverty, which is something I had. It's the greatest gift of all.
To
be poor.
Learn, yeah.
Yeah, but you can also not give them much. And I elected to not give them much.
Well, you also, is it true that you said that if they married before they were 25, they wouldn't inherit any money from you?
Gosh, where did you get that? That is true. Did I write that in the book? Oh my gosh. It's true. Yeah. And none of them did.
Because you didn't want them to make a bad marriage.
Well, like I did. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say.
Oh, here we go.
No. You had a really strong mom.
Yeah.
6 sisters, 5 daughters, 5 wives. You said you've spent your life immersed in estrogen. So, what has it taught you? What have you learned?
Well, I think that it's helped me work with people like Celine and Natalie. I think most of the people I've produced over the years are women. I think Shaka, Whitney, and Tony Braxton, and well, pretty endless list of women. And maybe I understand women, at least to work with them, maybe just not to live with them. I don't know.
And now you have a little boy with your wife, Catherine McPhee. Are you a different dad?
I am, and to my daughter's great credit, they're happy that I'm sort of a hands-on dad with him. It wasn't that I wasn't a hands-on dad with my daughters, but because I got married 2 or 3 times during that period, they were always having to deal with stepchildren. My stepchildren are great, but they always had to slide into second position, which must have been an awful feeling for them, you know? And I think they've reconciled and recovered from that now, but it certainly took a long time, and I understand it.
But your little boy is...
He's amazing. He's a drummer, and yeah, it's great.
Tell me the story of your mom calling you. It's almost like 40 years ago. From Victoria, BC, where you grew up, and you're living in LA, and she said there's a little girl from Victoria in hospital in LA named Rachel, and I want you to go and see her.
And my mother didn't want me to see her because I was anybody important, but just because I was from Victoria and the girl was from Victoria. And I was now, by then I was like 35, 34, and I felt this urge that it was time for me to start giving back, but I didn't know how to do it. And I was so busy working, I was like, oh, the heck with it, I'll just wait another year or two. I'll eventually get to being a good person and giving back. Then I went and visited this girl. I asked her what she wanted, if I could help with anything, thinking she might say, I want to go to Disneyland or something like that. She says, I want to see my sister. I haven't seen my sister in 2 months. Because her sister was back in Victoria, of course. She was in LA.
She was waiting for a transplant.
She was waiting for a liver transplant. And so obviously I flew the sister down. It was easy to do. Those two connected like in the hospital room. I was there, like standing back. It was like, God, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what I'm supposed to do. This is it. And I haven't looked back.
But to help families, you know, who are dealing with transplants and medical costs and complications.
You know, there's a lot of people, or celeb, quote unquote, celebs that they put their name on it, something, and it helps. It absolutely helps. This for me is a real mission. This is not a fly-by-night thing for me. We like to say that we're the only bright spot in a family's worst day. Because they get this news quite often, well, not so much now, but when we started, quite often it was a death sentence. Now, of course, they're much improved success rates. But yeah, we're going to take care of everything. All you got to do is concentrate on your sick child. We're going to pay the mortgage, the car payments, because they have to move. They have to basically create a second household. The one parent has to stay home, take care of the siblings. The other has to go sometimes thousands of miles away and sit for months sometimes. And it's just heartbreaking, and the divorce rate is just insane. And it's hard on the siblings, it's hard on everybody. So we fill all those holes, and it's as you can imagine, incredibly rewarding. And we're very solvent now. We've done our work, and we have money now to go for a long time.
And you'd go like, Mom, you'd be so proud of me.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, our offices, we bought a house in Victoria, and it's called Eleanor's House, which is the name of my mother. Yeah, she would be not proud of me. She'd just be happy for me. Happy for herself. She should be, because it was her impetus that made that happen. And
are you satisfied now, Mello?
No. No, I have a Broadway musical that's on Broadway, and I mean, we'll see whether it's a huge hit or not. I hope it is. I have another one in the works. We're constantly touring.
You and your wife, Catherine, that
yes,
is working well?
Well, Kat is an amazing singer who doesn't really need to tour with me, but we have a great little banter together, and she'll probably end up on a TV series again, like she's done many times, or on Broadway, or in movies, now that she's given birth and COVID is over. But for now, we're touring, and we love it. It's just really fun. The 22 hours around the touring is not so much fun, but the 2 hours on stage is great. And we tell great stories, and how we met 20 years ago, and yeah, we have a good time.
So is a happy ending?
Well, it's not over yet, I hope, but it's happy so far, yes, yes.
The final question we ask is, what does being Canadian mean to you?
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but I am the biggest flag waver of all. I should have been wearing my Order of Canada pin. I had it on yesterday in Toronto. I am a huge flag waver. I am so proud to be Canadian. which that feeling is shared by a lot of Canadians. Because growing up, we always felt that we had to work twice as hard to be taken half as seriously. And sort of felt the thumb of America on us, like that, you just had to work extra hard. And of course, I love America. And I love to say that Canada is the greatest country to be from, and America is the greatest country to realize your dreams. So I've got it both. I mean, I got the best of both. And I love going back to Canada. I take my Canadian passport everywhere, and I don't hesitate to go, I'm the Canadian. It's just, my upbringing on Vancouver Island was just nothing short of a miracle to me, how great it was. I mean, I've lived the Canadian and the American dream.
Well, such a pleasure to spend time with you.
Thanks, Valerie.
Thank you so much. We'll be back next week with another episode of Canada Files.
The preceding program was made possible through the generous support of Jim and Sandy Treliving, as well as the following donors: Ted and Alice Kernahan, the Linwood Family Foundation, Richard Pilasoff, the Browning Watt Foundation, Tony and Sherry Fell, Michael McCain and family, Richard Wernham and Julia West, Mary Davey, Clinch House Foundation, Bryce and Nikki Douglas, the 63 Foundation, David and Cheryl Carr, the Sheila and David Wilson Foundation, and by the Central Canadian Public Television Association.